Good morning, West USA. It is 9 a.m. Monday morning. Appreciate everybody joining us this morning. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. I bet you can't guess what we're going to be talking about.
Football starts soon.
Oh, guys, it's September 9th, first Monday Night Football game. So excited. Then I looked at who was playing. I'm like, oh, well, at least it's football.
It's football.
It's football. Anyways, a little sneak peek at what we got coming up today. Of course, we got Todd Nick here to give us a look at the numbers. Matt Baker with the Bookspend Baker teams here to give us our mortgage minute. And I'm going to share 3 tips to getting the word out. If you're not getting the word out to your sphere of influence, chances are I am. And and the 3 of us, I'm going to join Nick and Todd. We're going to dispel some of the misinformation and myths that are out there concerning all of the industry changes. As always, if you've got any comments or questions, please feel free.
There you go.
Feel free to email us at podcast@westusa.com.
Say that 3 times.
I can't say it 1 time, much less 3 times. All right, we have coming up this week our next Pro Start training. I've been amazed. We've been bringing on a lot of brand agents to West USA, to real estate school, and I'm just telling you, this is a great training. Especially going over all the contract forms and a lot of them change. So join Marge Lindsay for Pro Start. And as always, you just go on the dashboard. You can sign up for any of these events. All right, in the North Phoenix office, hey, that's here. Tomorrow from 11 to 12, we buy our broker presentation and review class with lunch. Dean Becker, in-person CE class tomorrow from 10 to 1 p.m. at the Goodyear office, 3 hours of contract law. And then on Wednesday, if you don't feel like getting out of bed and getting dressed for CE, you can do it from home. Todd Menard on Wednesday from 9 to 12, 3 hours of contract law. All right, we have our Mesa office meeting coming up this week, this Wednesday, 10:30 to 11:30 with Claudia's going to stop by, and then Nick and Dean are going to be there.
And they got a blood drive coming up, too.
That's the next.
Well, it's one of the slides.
Todd's excited. Todd's excited.
Hey, I want to give blood. The right way.
He wants a free feel.
The right way.
Next.
All right, next.
All right. Understanding reverse mortgages. This is a big deal. There is a lot of confusion out there about reverse mortgages, and a great option from your clients. And when you're taking this class under standing with mortgages, you can get 3 hours of general CE credit. All right, Todd,
blood drive.
Take it away, Todd.
Yeah, well, this is a great cause. I think everybody should go. And to blood, just click on the scan, and you can sign up. It'll tell you the exact available times and date slots that are still available. We usually, in the North Phoenix branch, we usually pack that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do they tell us how many pints or blood?
Claudia gets a breakdown at the end of every event she does. It's been a very well done event. They turn our North Phoenix train into like a full blood donation center. It's clean, very nice, and then you get lots of snacks.
Ooh.
But Mike shows up.
Ooh. All right.
That took a minute.
I know. All right, so we have I don't even know what this is. Oh, so West USA Cares event, Lights of Hope Across America. So that is coming up Tuesday, September 10th at the Dignity Health Cancer Institute. So reach out to Say Cares, your Cares ambassador, for more information about that. All right, take it away.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going over the Greater Phoenix metro market statistics for the week ending August 26th. And here we go. 110 days closed on market. Our month supply is at 2.31. Absorption rate 3.26%. Our average list price this past week was down 727.44. Average sale price at 527. List price to sale price at 97 points. Active inventory up 18,842 total available properties is sitting at 33.5, and closed units from month 8 at 39.44. New listings this past week, little short 1747, bringing our days on active to 109 days, and our days on market for closed at 81.7. Down on the lower left side, as we look at the price ranges, you'll see again the ranges in red, ones that contracted. Almost many of them were in last week, as you know. So this was a kind way to kind of step back into replaying some of those price range up in those price ranges. But of course, 1,547 really cut that, didn't really add enough product to the inventory. So take a look at the spreadsheet where everybody gets to be the expert. In the very center of the column, so those of relatively new to this podcast, in the very center column is your 2022 same week numbers 2 years ago, 2023 to that same week numbers, and then the two columns are week over week. So 1747, we took 2045 last week. 747 though, silver line higher than it was last year at 1684. But again, still a mark of what we need. Way over on the left side, if you're not familiar, you're seeing the rules. Those are the numbers that we, in most instances, should be at. And so again, we're way off the 2,400 number. The good news overall is that we had an increase in unit count. So the only way this can happen if you're bringing fewer units, fortunately, is if you're selling units. So 18,142, 287 of them are in the coming soon category. That was a huge drop. Actually, that should have been a red column. 14,753 for single-family detached, 2,886 new home construction properties, 18,734 non-distressed overall from the total inventory numbers. Looking at this is what we use to determine how many buyers are in the marketplace. So, just to slide your eyes over to the far right-hand side, you'll see that back in 2023, we had 200 people in escrow at any one time. To the left of that, you'll see July last year, we had 5,800, averaging somewhere between 38 and 4,200. We need 5,500. That's the number way over on the left side. So that's what we need. But in comparison to what you're in the marketplace year over year, what's happened, 33.45, it's about almost what we did last year, about a short at 30.73. Last week, a little bit better, but then that small amount, we're really looking for this to jump up. That would mean that there are ample buyers in the market. So if you have a listing and it's not selling, that's why it's 110 days on market now. There's just fewer in the market. It still really hasn't, even though the flip of written interest really hasn't changed much of the market, at least yet. Unless Matt, with the Mortgage Minute, will say the applications are because of that. That could be a sign they don't always immediately respond. It takes time for them to get approved and then contact you because they're happy or they're confident they might be able to get a property. So looking at closed, we're 39.44 month to date. We were at 40.41 last year, so we're way off that, about 18% off. Ebbs and flows, and we're only in the 24th of the month, so ultimately, we should see that change dramatically. Hopefully, we'll get into the green like last month, but we'll see. So a 2.1 month supply, since it's being eaten up, there's some anomalies here in porting, and I did it 2 or 3 times this morning just to make sure numbers were accurate, because normally if you're having a slow in sales, you're going to have an increase in the month supply and a decrease. But again, 2.1 is what the statistics show this past. Took a little bit of a hit. Average median price, the one on the bottom line there, is the one we typically pay attention to. The others are just way too capricious. $449,999 for $450,000. We've been right in that $440-$450 range all year long. As long as it doesn't really go above $450, I don't think there's really much of an issue there. And that again means that it doesn't really change. The very middle median is if there's 11, 5 below and 5 high, and number 6 is if the middle is still in reason, it means that housing isn't getting away from that first-time home buyer and workforce housing. But we are at 110 market. That's been edging continuously for the last 3 months. Right now, average sold 82 days on market. And we should be somewhere about 70. Number down here is the list price to sale price return. And what we use this number for is to determine if we were a buyer and we're putting an offer in on a seller's property, are we expecting to get a discount on the sale, on the purchase price? This doesn't have anything to do with concessions built in, nor does it really have anything to do with a seller compensation agreement. This is totally just what was the difference between the list price and the purchase at the time the offer was accepted. So 97.6, 97.8 is been the average all the way back till I started recording this in 1998. And I can tell you that, really a 2% negotiation is pretty consistent. So take that to the bank. Thinking 2% negotiation, maybe an SCA come in and could off some of your buyer's compensation. We'll have a whole conversation about that today. So on the numbers this week, Mike, thanks for tuning in.
All right, appreciate it as always. And Matt, how are loan applications doing?
They are about the same. They haven't really done much, but the rates have improved. And to Todd's point, there is always a delay, I find, and it could be a month, it could be a few weeks, but there is a delay because most of the time what they're reporting a week ago is really 2-week data. And so really by the time it catches up, rates could have already moved by then, but they have ticked better. And sort of the big reason that you see we finally broke over this resistance line. Green is good, red is bad, and we've sort of been hovering, as you can see, really since that last main inflation number that really showed that on the jobs report that unemployment was at 4.4%. Now we're finally getting above that, and that was really based off of Friday. And the Fed chair spoke at his Jackson Hole event and said, "Yep, the time's now. We're ready. We're ready." So they're baking in guess what? Fed chair spoke Friday, and there's a couple things in here that I thought were worth noting. The commentary was definitely dovish. The time has come for policy to adjust. I mean, that was his exact phrase. So that really set the market into like 100% chance that they're going to do a September cut, a 33% chance that it's going to be 50 basis points. Wow. Still there's not quite a majority, but a third of the respondents think that there may be up to 50, but 100% is a quarter. And then probably the biggest one is 73% chance of 100 basis points of cuts by the end of the year. And guess what? That quarter, 100%, the Fed, it's kind of if we go back, that's where that late July run came from. So it's already baked into the market. Right? They've already priced it in because the mortgage rates move in anticipation of what the Fed's going to do. So my guess is it's pretty much there. But what is the Fed policy? What are they going to set next? Basically September 18th in their next meeting is going to really trajectory out where we can start to see some more improvement. Because if we get 100 basis points a cut, you would likely see that we get another 75 or more of base points, improvement, which in our world is a quarter to 3/8, sometimes 0.5%, depending on the day, in interest rate. So that's a good sign. Now, just really quick, something about I came across from Guild, and I really liked it. I thought it was worth sharing. Is like, meet your audience where they spend the time. Like, where are you going to your social media? And I pulled up some of these stats. Gen Z, and I'll clarify what that is if you don't know, but they visit 2 to 3 platforms daily, and they mainly stay in YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Based on my kids in the lower generation of Gen Z, that's probably affirmative. Well, definitely in the YouTube, but not the other two. But anyway, here's what that breakdown is, right? So Gen Z is 12 to 27-year-olds. So obviously you have your adult Gen Zers, and you have your kid Gen Zers, but you can see baby boomers, Gen X, like what percentage and what age groups they are, in case you didn't know. But more importantly, millennials and Gen X actually use more platforms than Gen Zers. You may think that opposite, but they obviously spend more time Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest.
We're better at multitasking.
Yeah.
So are some boomers, by the way, just to let you know.
Well, I'll get there.
Okay.
Todd, thank you.
Here we go.
If Facebook is the route you take and you like it, and look at the percentage. So 36% of Gen use Facebook. That's very good. But look at 87% of millennials, 90% Gen X, and 96% of baby boomers use Facebook weekly. Based on some grandparents that like to text me, they definitely use Facebook through Messenger. So Facebook would be a good resource. And then I just like this stat for why be more present in social media. 80% of every generation uses social media at least once a day. So some cool stats, and I left this in there from last week because I just feel it's so powerful. If you didn't get a chance to snip it, publish it, talk about it, tell your people. Again, you're not quoting rates because it's been sourced by Freddie Mac and Mortgage News Daily, and it's got all the disclosures that you need, but it would be something that you could maybe social out or text down and go, hey, if you're sitting on the fence, have you seen what happened in the last 6 months?
Well, I did it. I took it and I put it on my Facebook page. I got a lot of great, great feedback and a lot of offline conversations, through direct messaging and so forth.
Feel free to tag me,
and that's
Mike.
the goal, right?
Yeah, but but I realized now I didn't have a bunch of Gen Zers commenting, so
Nope.
now I know. I should.
If you were on Facebook, then you had all the baby boomers responding. And hey, look, September 11th is another good day of CPI inflation data coming out. This happens to be the date that we do our next pulse, where we talk about the economy, housing, and rates. Just register. If you don't, then you get at least the link to know when it is, and you get the reminders. And then, as always, here's my contact card, and happy to be a resource for you. But fun times coming up. I think this fall is going to be crazy busy.
All right. Well, Nick's our resident millennial. What's your platform of choice?
Why do you go to millennial every time? Like, I get
No,
that we're
I
a big
go to
demographic.
short jokes every
Okay,
time.
you're right.
Okay.
Sure. Yes, most millennials are still touching on Facebook, but anyone younger than my generation, Facebook is going to be a far reach. It's definitely of the older demographics. YouTube is where you want to be putting your time and focus. But again, like Matt said, that was the number one point. Go to where your demographic are. Don't go to YouTube thinking that that's where your buyers and sellers are going to be. Your buyers and sellers should be where you are. Don't pivot away from them to try to build a new database. You can, but don't forget about the people that got you there.
Yeah.
Like it.
All righty. Well, I am personally on the Tic Tac machine and the IG machine.
The what?
We got this podcast. It gets posted. I don't even know how to use the platform. Yeah, it drives my kids nuts. I call it the Tic Tac machine. They don't.
Okay, boomer.
Okay. Anyway.
Oh,
Ouch.
yeah, no, I know the names.
All righty. So one of these days, we won't be talking about BBAs and buyer broker showing agreements
Well, it'll become normal.
and yeah, it will become normal.
Yeah.
But there's obviously a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversations going on amongst agents and so forth. And I am telling you, and you need to figure out how to get the word out. Later on, the three of us, we're going to talk about the misinformation and the myths out there that are being perpetrated by the media, by other agents,
forums.
and things like that. And so I would say the majority of consumers are aware that there have been changes, are aware of something, and they don't quite know what the changes are. And so it's important for us to take care of our nest, to take care of our sphere of influence, protect them, and get the word out. So that's what we're going to talk about, getting the word out. I think it's imperative that every single one of us sits down and develops a marketing strategy. I mean, not just, hey, I'm going to call a couple people here, I'm going to post here, whatever the case is. I mean, sit down, evaluate your database, evaluate your CRM system, evaluate who is in your pipeline, and determine, for a lot of us, our sphere of influence is very large, so we can't necessarily do the same thing for, I've got 7,000 people in my CRM system. I can't pick up the phone on 7,000 people. And really put together a strategy. This is a big deal. And all these changes are a big deal. And attitude will determine whether it's a positive experience for you or a negative experience for you. But we need to build a plan, get the word out. Your sphere of influence needs to know and get the accurate information about the changes and the forms that we are now using, because they are getting the information from somewhere. And you have to take inventory of that. Where are they getting that information? And you want them, and for me, one of the biggest things when I am getting the word out and I'm having conversations with my sphere of influence is really emphasizing the dangers of signing a buyer-broker agreement with just any agent because you want to see a house. That you could be married to that agent for 6, for 9, no more than 12 months. We've established that last week. And then I think the best thing that you can do is, mastermind with other agents. When you're having conversations with other agents, don't ask them about buyer broker agreements and things like that. Reserve those questions for your broker. But as far as their marketing strategies, as far as how getting the word out, ask them and mastermind and come up with ideas, because this really, you should have been really working on this 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
But a lot of agents now are getting the word out, and you're going to wake up one day, and a lot of people in your sphere of influence will have already signed a broker agreement with someone.
There's a gentleman that some of us don't really enjoy what the has done in the world. But I don't know if you remember back to Rob Emanuel about 5 years ago.
Don't be so harsh about Nick.
That's
Jeez.
exactly what I was going to say.
I
So
mean,
I'm right
wow.
here, Todd.
Nick, I'm
But
you, buddy.
the thing is do you remember he said never let a crisis go to waste? And the problem is this is what I'd like to share on this topic today. There is a major pit going on in the marketplace right now. There is a major misunderstanding going on in the marketplace right now. And so you need to be the one that's bringing, this is giving you a visible opportunity that has people looking into this question. So make sure you hashtag all of your posts appropriately and you're getting out there, because this is your time in the marketplace right now to move from mediocre to master. And you need to make sure that you are spewing the correct information so that no one else has the ability to challenge what you're saying. Now, Mike said talk to other realtors. I love that. I'm going to tell you, talk to every individual person that you know that is not a realtor and ask them, hey, you heard about this? Yes, you did. Great. What did you hear? And then when they're done, where did you hear that? And then write that information down and go back afterwards and go to that information and take a screenshot of it, because that is potentially misinformation. And that's what the day is going to be about.
And I think that's the big point there, is making sure that you are the place that people go to get the real information about what's happening in real estate. You shouldn't be the source of everything that happens to all of your clients, your sphere of influence, but you should be the one that when someone brings up a real estate topic, you're the name that they're using to say, yeah, my realtor told me this, or they posted about it here. I see a lot of agents doing one of things. They're either ignoring it or they're posting articles from other news media, and I would say both of those things are incorrect. You should ignore it. You need to acknowledge it. People are hearing about it, and if they go to your page and you're crickets on it and you're acting like it's not happening, that's just as bad, in my opinion, is posting that take articles that we're seeing on some of the news outlets. Get in front of it, have conversations, and I think you guys' points are 100% valid. This is what the forums are for, masterminding with agents on this specific type of thing, marketing, conversations, and that's great.
All right, number two, personal touches are the best. Like I said, you're gonna take a inventory of your entire database, your entire sphere of influence, and there may be a number in there that is too great for you to be able to have personal touches, and so then you've got to prioritize your database and figure out who are the top ones. And yes, there's all kinds of different ways to get the word out, but right now, personal touch are best. Who can you not afford to lose? Who is ready to transact in the next 12 months? And reach out to them. And so I've been doing a lot of in-person stuff, coffee, lunch, dinners, happy hours. And some of my clients, I've just been going to their houses, especially, during their 6-month portfolio reviews. And to your point, Todd, that's the question that's how I've been leading these discussions. So what have you heard? And I have yet in the last 90 days, I'll say 60 days. In the last 60 days, I have yet to talk to anyone in my influence that was completely unaware of something that has gone on. Right. I've had more agents in the last 2 weeks go on the MLS and wonder where the compensation is, because they have no idea. I had more agents know less than than my sphere of influence. So go, and then so you got your in-person ones, you got your one-on-ones. And then those that you can't meet in person, go through your CRM, make calls. I've been doing a lot of Zoom, setting up Zoom calls, because I'd rather, anybody for me has got time to pick up the phone and have a consultation and have a call. I'd rather do it on Zoom. And remember, time is of the essence. You got to start working on this. You got to start getting the word out, because I'm telling you, if you are not having these conversations with your database, with your sphere of influence, just know somebody else is. That somebody else may not be giving them accurate information.
And they're going to the place of least, effort. And so, again, this is one of those opportunities that's not going to last a long time. And if you can be in front of this curve rather than behind it or even following with it. So I guess what I'm saying here is this. To Mike's point, prospecting, touching, meaning shaking hands with somebody, having a face-to-face conversation in person if you can. I don't want to repeat what Mike said, but find out who the people are in your database that are most likely to do business with you or refer business to. And those are the people you need to reach out to first. Now, you could do a Zoom. I love Zoom. I love creating videos on Zoom or on TikTok for that matter. I'm one of those, boomers that is in every single one of those social media places that you meant that was in today. But at that point, don't want to give everything you know in those Zooms because, again, it's like anything else. That prevents you from the consumer from needing to have a conversation with you because you just gave it to them. But if instead you give them a lead into that, like, are you aware? If you weren't aware, you and I need to have a conversation right now, or something along those lines that at least makes the phone ring. Don't give everything away.
Well, when I'm saying the Zooms,
No, I didn't
my
mean to cut you
Zooms are
off.
one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
if I can't meet you one-on-one and we're gonna pick up the phone and have a conversation, you and I are gonna do a one-on-one Zoom.
No, you did that earlier.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
didn't mean to challenge that. And I didn't think I did, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so both of your points and what was already kind of addressed here, developing a marketing strategy in this situation is important. It's even more so important when it comes to personally touching your sphere of influence. That's a little weird. So you have a different demographic of people that you're going to be working with every single day, talking to in your sphere. Some could be, and I don't love going through generational stuff. It's weird how obsessed we are with generations right now. The one thing that I do agree with is personality trait. Yeah. You know that some of the older generation is going to be okay picking up a phone and having a conversation, meeting you for a cup of coffee, to meet and talk in person. Anyone who's under a millennial, trying to get them on a phone is terrifying to them. It's debilitating, but they like watching video. And with these social media platforms, you create one video and you can post it on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. So you're spreading out your personal touches based on who is in your sphere of influence and the ways they like to get content.
Mike and I have been saying, Nick, for almost over a decade now, on this show, tell Lori. But in addition to that, I've always said, find a reason to pick a phone. Yep. If you have to talk to people you haven't talked to in a long time, that obstacle, that resistance built up in you. Well, I haven't talked to them in a long time. Well, there's really no reason. Then I probably don't even remember me, or whatever it might be. This is the perfect time to engage those conversations.
All right. So the third one, we've been talking a lot about video, and I think videos are fantastic. And I put on here, create a video that posted on social media, sent through email and or via text. I did want to say, though, in light of all these changes and all the confusion out there, if you are going to create a video that goes into the details of these industry changes, the last thing you want to do is post something that could get into trouble. And so I put on here, so anything that is going to be seen publicly relating to all of these changes and how you're explaining to people, run it by advertising at WestU.com first. And I know we have listeners that aren't part of West USA. Run it by your broker first, because so what I've just been doing with my videos, because this has been evolving like crazy, and once you post, it's there, right? Evergreen. So I've just been posting a lot of videos to YouTube, and the only people who see them are those that actually have the link. I just send them directly to them because I've been talking about this with Mike for the last 2 to 3 months. I don't. 2 months ago, I had a less of an understanding of where we're at today. So if you're going to go public with it, just make sure that it's approved. And create informational emails. Start. That's a great way to get back into your spam and start. Sending some emails. And for those that have the upgraded iFound Agent websites, we have the ability to create blogs. And with AI and GPT, no excuse for not being able to write a blog again. You can still always send that content to a broker and have them review it. But I love writing blogs because then I send link out whether via email or I post whatever the case is, and then it's driving people to the website.
Last thing, really, really quick, and I know everyone's feelings on NAR right now, but whatever they are, NAR has done a good job getting out public information for realtors to utilize to talk to their influence. So if you're not sure, please make sure you are sure. Like Mike said, you don't want to be saying something in copy that is particularly incorrect and gets you into trouble.
And
so use NAR stuff first.
Sorry, Nick, talk over you. And I would also just make sure that you some kind of, and talk to the your brokers about it, some disclosure on everything you're doing. That'd be just like as of today. Yep. My understanding, and it could change. Stay tuned, or something along those lines.
My disclosure, if you're watching, I'm a jackass. Yeah. So there's only so many expectations, right? All right. Yep. Fun fact of the day. So we have our BBA fun facts and other things you should know about industry changes. So this happens a lot, especially for those of us that are part of teams. But a lot of us as agents, we use showing agents. And so if you are an agent that is using a showing agent to show homes for your client, number one, you want that client to sign a buyer broker agreement with you, and don't assume just because they're a showing agent that they don't have to have something signed with your client. So if you have a showing agent, you as the primary agent have your client sign the buyer broker agreement. Your showing agent is going to sign a buyer broker showing agreement and have that in place, because they cannot, even though you've got a BBA in place, your showing agent cannot open the door without something in place.
Yep.
Fun
fact.
I don't know if that was fun.
Well,
I think
factual.
they're fun.
All right, guys. So we're going to get into this. So the three of us, we started talking about this last week of just like anything, the media picks up stories. They're uninformed. They don't know what they're talking about, and they need to create articles, and they need to create content. And so I've been seeing a lot of things out there that are just not accurate. Portraying the wrong message to the general public. We've seen a lot of misinformation coming from agents, coming from brokers, and things like that. And I do want to say, that not all brokerages are the same. And what we're going to talk about are the policies of West USA Realty specific. We're not going to speak to. I'm going to tell you what you should or you shouldn't do. You need to talk to your own broker.
Right.
So, so I wanted to talk about, and Nick brought this one up. And this is a good one. Talk about social media forums. When you are on, first of all, I did put on here, just simply avoid them all there. Right. Okay.
That should be at the top.
Yeah.
When you are on these forums and you see an agent posting, it may seem wrong to you. You have to clarify and understand that they might be in a different state, and that state has different types of policies. Nick, to the example that you gave, this poor agent made some comment on the forum of how upset she was because she walked into an open house, and the agent at the open house wasn't having anyone sign a buyer broker agreement or any of these documents, and she got lit up.
Yeah.
And turns out this agent's in California, and California has a different policy than Arizona.
Correct. Yeah, I know on social media, if you really want to get attention, just say something incorrectly. And you will get the most comments, the most engagement on your post, especially if you're perceived to be wrong. And I love you all to death, because agents love to be the smartest person in the room. So it gained a lot of traction fast, and people started to try to clarify it. But at that point, the comments were so buried. So if you're going to post on a national forum, do yourself a favor and clarify the state you're in. And if you're reading national forums, just please cautious that Arizona is Arizona and California, and so on and so forth. And you need to understand that different states have different rules and regulations, and they're perceiving these changes a little bit different ways than every other state.
Yeah, this might be a really good time to read your code of ethics, and specifically the preamble, which a lot of people don't read. Because in there it says, if a realtor feels that a reply is necessary or a comment is necessary, we all feel that a comment is necessary. But if we do it in a very judicial and professional manner. And so to this particular topic about state, I want to say every broker could have a different showing agreement. Every broker could have a different exclusive buyer broker agreement. There is no responsibility any longer in this industry to use it unless the broker says so, to use specific document. Now, West USA always has a tendency to follow AAR's docs, at least unless we feel there's a better document available. But to that particular point, I would also take the stand here that when a buyer says, I signed an agreement to show, I would want to find out which agreement. Was it another broker's agreement? Was it AR's agreement? Because an agreement to show can have legs based on the terms of the conditions of the document. And it could tie that client into that document long term, even though industry thinks because the AA argument doesn't do that.
Yeah, and good point. This is totally off topic, but on it because my team last week got into a deep discussion about this. is, and it's funny. It's always been the case. This is nothing new. But somebody walks into your open house, or somebody calls on your sign, or whatever the case is. We've always have to have asked them, have they entered into any type of written agreement with another agent? But now we really have, right? I mean, that's part of what we're supposed to do. Yep. So my feeling is, I'm not asking people, have they signed and entered into a buyer-broker agreement with another agent? I'm asking them, have they signed anything with another agent? And if the answer is yes, it's, can you read me the top line of that document, or can you send it to me? Yeah. And because if you ask somebody if they've signed a buyer-broker agreement, chances are they have no idea what they signed anyway. And they might say yes, when in essence, they didn't. Mm-hmm. And now you've lost that opportunity. But what I hadn't really thought about is, they might sign something a different broker's created. Mm-hmm. And I'd be curious to get my hands on those.
Well, there's a number of them in the industry, and maybe Nick's prepared to talk about it. But, of course, we don't want to talk about companies' names, but there are some national companies that, because they are national, they're in multiple states. Their document needs to look a little bit different than ours would if we're only in this state, or if the document is only for those agents licensed in the state of Arizona. So some of those national documents, national brokers, franchises, their documents look totally different.
Yeah, and we'll start to see more and more, mostly throughout the year.
All right, so these are the two things that I feel like you need to get on the phone, and you need to communicate with your entire database. We talked a little bit about it during the 3-pack. So this is the misinformation should say misinformation to clarify with your buyers. There are still agents here in Arizona that are holding open houses, and every buyer that walks in to that open house, they are requiring them to sign. Now, I don't know whether they're having them sign a buyer-broker agreement or just a buyer-broker showing agreement. So the instruction that I'm giving to every single one of my buyers is, if you walk into an open house and they require you to sign something, to let them know that you are not required to sign something. An agent can't require you. Now, and I'm going just, as far as, at the NAR level, or you can describe what level we're being governed on. Now, I can't say that other brokerage isn't requiring it, but I want my buyers to understand that they are not required to sign something. So you could tell the agent, go to pound sand, leave, call me, whatever the case is, but don't fall for that trap.
Yeah, and the other piece of the open house documentation is that the Code of Ethics under Article 9 specifically states that if you're a realtor, that you have to give the consumer a copy of what they have initialed or signed at the time they have initialed or signed it. So if in fact somebody is out there having people sign something, they are by law, well, actually the law says as soon as practical, they have to give the document of what somebody has signed to them as soon as practical. But the Code of Ethics is specific, and every agent that is a MLS member, for the most part, is an NAR member, and as a result, they are held accountable to the terms and conditions of the Code of Ethics. So, like Mike's, tell them they don't have to sign anything, and that is the truth. But if they did, ask them if they received a copy of it, because the Code of Ethics says they had to, but have received a copy at the time they initialed or signed it.
I didn't know that. That's a good one. That was a good one. Yep. All right, second one is that, and this is coming. This is coming from agents. I still see agents posting this and giving advice to other agents. And I see, I'll see stuff in the media, in articles and things like this, of what's being told to buyers is that buyers have to, basically saying they are required, if they want to use a buyer's agent, if they want to have representation, they are solely responsible for it. And that, frankly, just isn't true. What I'm communicating to my buyers is, after explaining the changes, there is a situation where you might, and might is the word, we could face a situation where maybe, or you might be having to come to the closing table with funds to compensate, my services. but it's not a have to. And everything, again, is always negotiable, and we are still going to, through the SBA, we are still going to do everything that we can within our power to negotiate with the seller and to have the seller pay for my services. So, yes, you might have to, and it's a possibility, but this thought and this message, buyers now require. And I see this on Facebook. Agents will, you just got to tell your buyers they got to pay for you. Yeah. Well, that's stupid.
Well, it's just the wrong answer. I mean, there's so many reasons that's the incorrect answer. But I will say, I in trying to prepare for today, one of the things that I was hoping to have was a series of slides that, as we were asking each of the questions, would have a different photo, and each of the photos would have a different news media that had said something wrong. And I had about 8 or 9 of them, and honestly, I forgot to send them to Mike over the weekend.
That'd have been a lot.
But the thing was, that one of the stations here in Phoenix, and again, I don't really remember, I think it was Channel 3, but they did an interview, and one of the things that they said on the interview was that, and this is written, it was in writing online from this news station. It said that buyers must sign a representation agreement with a buyer's agent prior to seeing a home. Well, that's not really true. The truth is only Realtor MLS members are required to have a buyer sign a document prior to showing them a home. If you're a commercial practitioner and you're a licensee of the state of Arizona, but you're not a Realtor member, you are not obligated to have anything signed, and the buyer's not obligated to have anything signed either. So that, that didn't help. In some instances, that misinformation, it would be nice to say is helping us in the industry, because it's dampening the consumer's potential question, do I have to sign this? But when they do, Michael, I like what you said. You can also say, this responsibility of doing this is part of the National Association of Realtors settlement. And therefore, anybody working with a realtor is responsible for entering into a buyer-broker showing agreement or a buyer-broker exclusive prior to seeing a home. That is actually accurate from that statement. So in other words, you could tie in the real answer and say that is accurate because you're speaking to your portion of your reply. So I just thought that it was really a unique thing. And the one that I think you could also look up the one that was just done with CEO of AAR, who, Scott Tucker, who went on TV, and I think they were trying to catch him a little bit, but he did a really good job of just sticking to the point. And so just again, misinformation and what consumers are holding on to. But Mike, I like also the fact that you said, doesn't matter what they signed, did you sign anything? Don't ask them what they signed, just say, did you sign? Because then that at least it can initiate an opportunity to get a copy of what they signed.
Yeah, and Nick, and for me, like I said, there's all kinds of misinformations, but these are the two that I think are most damaging to my buyers.
And it's the two most commonly understood portions of what we're talking about. The open house, having documents signed before in Arizona. No, you don't have to have a document signed before going through an open house. Buyers having to pay for representation. That has always been and will remain a negotiable conversation. And to Todd's point, the interview that Scott Drucker did, I would recommend every agent watch and see how he navigated through those questions, because they did come at him in a little bit of a gotcha politic. But the great thing about those, and to Todd's point quickly, these hot take news articles that people are reading, they do allow us to come back and say, well, that's not 100% accurate. Actually, it's this. And usually our actually it's this is a little scary than what the news media is making it out to be.
Well, I think West USA should get the link to the Scott Rucker interview and post it on Facebook.
I have been talking about it a lot. That probably would make sense.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Do we have anyone that would do that for us?
I'll find someone.
All right, so misinformation. Agents are telling their buyers. Todd, these are yours.
I owe a reply disclosure to the first question, because prior podcasts I've been saying, the only people this is really harming, because the $1 million market pays cash and they afford to pay for, representation. I've always said the groups, the demographics that this policy is is burdening is the buyer, and first time buyers typically are limited on their amount of saved ability to save funds and workforce housing. Well, that's not that comment was wrong. However, just like I said earlier, somebody else's comment was wrong. I have to say my comment was really wrong. There should have been more to it. It should have been, for instance, the buyer. This actually helps establish a better relationship between a buyer and their realtor. It's also because now think about it. Anybody who said, "Yeah, you're worth 15 people," you're really paying attention to me. Well, now contractually, you're obligated to pay attention to them. So the reality outcome is they're hopefully going to get their service. They're going to get more applicable service, more relevant service. But when it comes to harm them, we think of it cost them more down payment money. And it's not true either, because we can lie by saying things along the lines of, there are alternatives. I'm going to help you navigate through the process. Those alternatives are Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and VA are now allowing, potentially if conditions go above the maximum guidelines for your particular loan, they're not penalizing you. So it is possible that it could be financed. If you put seller compensation addendum in, then the reality is that's the best way, because it's only affecting both the seller and the buyer's bottom line.
Yeah, but for me, I've never seen it. I've had the same argument that this is going to harm first-time home buyers, and not so much of the money per se, because again, that is still negotiable. It's where I think it's harming first home buyers is because of all the misinformation out there. Because first-time home buyers are being told by agents or the media that you have to pay, you're basically going to be required to pay representation. It forces them into a decision of going unrepresented. And I think that the most dangerous scenario in the entire world is for a first-time home buyer to go in unrepresented.
Sorry, I just wanted to quickly, because that is where the concern should be. I think everyone in the room and everyone listening would agree people should have representation, experts in their field. I had it with my cell phone. I'm pretty good at technology. I went to the Apple store. It was like, hey, this is what you guys for a living. Help me walk through how to fix this. Why we wouldn't do that to purchase a large product home? Obviously, we should. But that's what we're putting into first-time buyers' brains. More and more of them are thinking it's a benefit to them to save the X amount of percentage compensation to go unrepresented. And it's what we have to continue to fight.
They don't know, and that's a good point, Nick, because they will not know if they are not represented. They will not know all the different paths to potentially having someone else offset that position.
Yep. All right, I want to jump to this last one here, Todd. This is bad, and this is getting nasty out there. But buyers are telling, or agents are telling their buyers that I can demand that the listing agent sign a CAB form, in which I want to say again, for WebSay's perspective, we're trying to avoid using the CAB form. There's really not a huge reason for it. It's because we have the seller commission addendum, but or we can demand ahead of time what the seller is willing to pay. This is dominating, in my opinion, dominating the forums right now, because and I think the new policy, I think it helps buy sellers. I think it really does, because, and I'll just say it, I'm one of those agents. If you see my listing and your buyer is interested in it, and you send me that text going, hey, what's your seller willing to pay? I'm going to tell you, because our ER, we've left that section blank. I'm going to say seller is definitely willing to cooperate with buyer brokers. However, they have not determined that amount. I'm unaware of that amount, because it's going to be based on the strength of the offer. Now a seller is contractually committed paying X banana based on any type of offer that comes in.
Nice job, Mike. Yeah, I got to tell you, in this particular situation, there is going to be, now, again, I'm going to just say what Nick said over the last few podcasts. You were part of the lawsuit. Realtors were part of the lawsuit. NAR was the focus, but copycat lawsuits all across the country were happening because you, as a member of NAR, were also a part of that NAR lawsuit. So there is a section that is the Realtor settlement agreement. And that is what you are. If you did not opt out, and your time on, by the way, if you did not opt out, you are automatically opted in to what our settlement portion was. And if you have to read that realtor because now if moving forward you do anything that violates that agreement, that settlement for the realtor, you will eliminate yourself from that protection going all the way back to 2002, and you're going to put yourself in a situation for anything you're doing moving forward.
Now going back to the buyer's agent,
Yeah.
and this is what I'm seeing because we personally had on one of our listings where the agent texted and wanted to know, and we gave them the response, and they basically just said, "Well, then I'm not going to show you property." I'm like, oh,
But that's a bad idea.
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
like,
theory violation
but
right there.
this is what agents are doing. They're so consumed before moving forward about finding out what that seller is offering to pay, just for the love of everything that is holy on the face of this earth, just send over the SCA.
Right. We're gonna touch on it on Thursday in the Mesa office. I think Thursday when the Mesa office. But the reason why we're seeing a lot of these is because the people still want to compensation before they write the offer. They're stuck in how real estate used to be. And yes, real estate changed really fast on us, but that's what that cab form keeps us stuck in the old ways where we got to. We need to look to the future.
So they're also planning, just FYI, Nick, you didn't have to, but the point is that cab form is probably going to go away, and it's probably going to go away because it was created by a bunch of realtors that were in a room. That is exactly the whole premise of what this lawsuit was all about, was that realtors were scheming together to keep compensation high. And that document is a document that establishes compensation between realtors, between brokerages, and it burdens the seller if you signed that buyer broker section of your listing contract.
All right, we got like 4 minutes. I want to dialogue this because Todd, you sent this over, and I understand the intent, and really, I changed the title of things not to say to seller, but I want to talk about how you have this discussion with the seller without specifically saying this, because we don't want to go into the whole point of this is we don't want to be colluding, and we don't want to be leaving sellers the opinion that they have to offer compensation. So you can't go in there and talk to the seller and tell them the properties are going to take longer to sell if they don't offer compensation. That's going back to why we're here in the first place, right? And buyers will not be able to afford to purchase your home if you don't offer buyer broker comp. And buyer agents will not show your home if you do not offer buyer broker compensation up front. We don't want to say things to a seller, and do not put it in a flyer. Don't put it in your listing presentation. However, though, because what I've been seeing on Facebook is people going, well, put together a spreadsheet showing them the differences of homes that have sold with compensation, homes haven't, and so forth. How do we have a real life conversation explaining the benefits of offering something versus not offering something without going over that line?
Well, that section, buyer broker, of the real estate exclusive listing seller rent document, gives you the opportunity to have this particular conversation. And you don't want these three comments. And the reason why is there are attorneys that have paralegals who have received their real estate licenses, and also that are acting as secret buyers.
Is that a violation of the Code of Ethics?
No, not for people. What part?
The realtor code. Okay, so a paralegal goes out, get their license to do nothing, trap me as a secret shopper, but they're realtors.
It doesn't matter. Two different things. It would be like one realtor trying to hold. No,
I'm going to explore that one.
So anyway, the fact here is that this thing gives you the opportunity to have a conversation with yourself. And you can't bring up these three sections. And don't honestly believe these three sections, and never really have. What happens is there are times when a buyer needs additional concessions. There are times when buyers don't have enough money and we get creative. Just put on your creative hat. Say to the seller, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, this section was put in this listing contract, but our brokerage and I do not believe that you should fill out and check this box and fill out this information. Instead, you should give us an opportunity to put a comment in additional terms that say that you may be willing to consider an SCA and buyer broker compensation based upon the offer itself. And so if you put something like that and you leave buyer broker that box and then use this against the other agent who comes in and tries to steal the listing from you. Any of these things really aren't really true, but this is what you might hear. And if you do, then you will need to realize that maybe this is the realtor you don't want to do business with. Quite honestly, so in the situation where they would give an amount to you. You would then have the right to advertise and market that outside of the MLS. And what happens if the buyer came along and the buyer didn't need all that money?
All right, I'm just
I
going to
know
run
you
through
didn't
these.
get the answer you wanted, but that's
No. So
that's how I would recommend doing it.
misinformation. Nick, we're seeing people still put $0 on the buyer broker agreement.
Don't do that.
But thinking that if the seller compensation agreement has the number that they're going to get paid that. Why would I put 0 on the buyer broker agreement?
Because it's an easier to entry. You think that because you're working with a client and you know the seller's offering compensation, whether it's a new build or whatever the reason, you think you know what the seller's offering. So you tell your buyer, hey, I'm going to put 0 so you're not on the hook because I know the seller's going to cover that cost. You have to think of the buyer broker agreement, I'm using Maverick terms, hard deck. You cannot be paid a penny over a dollar amount, compensation amount that you put on the buyer broker agreement. So no matter what the seller's offering, if you write 0 on that EBA, the entirety of compensation is going to your buyer.
Don't get mad at your broker.
Right.
Because this is going to be a you problem.
Absolutely do not do that.
All right. So for those of us that are collecting retainers, policy is the retainer needs to be paid with a cashier's check and made payable to the brokerage. Is no difference between an ER and a buyer broker agreement or buyer broker showing agreement. They are still employment agreements. You have 5 days to upload them to your dashboard.
I was told to tell everyone immediately.
Yeah, do them right away.
Okay.
I got snapped. That's saying 5 days.
Yeah.
All right. And then, of course, we've been talking about do not mention compensation. I think by now we all know don't put anything on the MLS about compensation in private remarks, pictures, or anything like that. But it also includes putting compensation verbiage in your response on a line, showing time, putting something in a lockbox with a percentage. All of those things are tied to the MLS and are no-nos. So, Nick, our policy, though, I have a listing, I get a showing time request, and then that agent that's requesting a showing of my listing asks through showing time or a line, what's compensation, how do we... You're not a broker. Should I be asking you this?
Well, I've been in the room when the brokers answer this question, so I'm confident parroting what they're saying. The response is if someone asks you, is there compensation being offered on this listing, and you approve it, that saying yes to the compensation, what our recommendation is just simply respond back as a note stating no compensation will be discussed in the medium, and leave it at that. Just completely don't give another opportunity, and you may want to just add an autoresponder to a line and showing time saying those things to cover yourself.
I went into a listing this weekend with Lynn, just FYI, and there was a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and a little plastic thing at a 45-degree angle as you walk in the door on the right-hand side that said, we are offering this % commission.
And that according to the settlement agreement, that is fine.
But again,
don't do that.
Don't do that.
All right. Well, we've gone over, so we'll continue to go over. Okay, Todd, a question. Some of us agents are considering sign writers.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a sign writer that says, we work with buyer brokers, whatever that verbiage is, and my understanding that that's okay, but it's underneath my real estate sign that's got the MLS logo.
That's fine.
Okay.
It's not inside an MLS.
But we're not
system.
recommending that either. And again, think of it as a poker game. If you if you told the person that was playing poker against you what you had for cards, or at least the three of a kind that you already have, would that be a good strategy for your poker match? And the answer would be no. So the answer is don't tell people what your seller would be willing to pay for compensation.
But that listing
Just
that
say
you
what you
guys went
said.
in this weekend had that flyer, then same argument, you wouldn't recommend that.
No.
Correct. We're not
no.
recommend it,
Yeah.
but it's there. People are still doing it, so just do it legally.
Yeah.
Don't get yourself into any
If anything,
trouble.
put that comment you just said, Mike. A seller may be willing to offer an amount of compensation, use the SCA, and it's per individual offer.
All
based
right.
on the offer.
We've discussed a lot. There's going to be a lot more to discuss, but I just wanted to end this with this. When in doubt, talk to your brokers. I know a lot of you aren't part of West USA. You're at other brokerages. So go talk to your broker for the right answers. Don't rely on forums and other agents for information. I think that's just the greatest, the greatest takeaway, or our podcast. Perfect. I appreciate everybody joining us today. Leave you with the quote of the day: "Education is not the filling of a pail, but rather the lighting of a fire." Go out and sell a home.
Boom.